Right, so in the summer of 2024, a young British man went missing in Tenerife. It caught fire and caught the imagination of the British public like no missing persons case, in my opinion, has done in years. And when we started this channel, it was a topic that we weren't quite sure whether we were going to speak about or not. Obviously, the case had kind of come to a conclusion. The internet was still rife with conspiracy theories around the case, different opinions from different people on what they believe was the fate of young Jay Slater, who was obviously found dead after being missing for around a month in a ravine, which was around a 40-minute drive away from where he was staying in the Playa de los Américas area of Tenerife. And although we were told at the time that it was non-suspicious and that the injuries that the post-mortem had found were consistent with that of a fall from height, we are now at the start of an inquest into the death of Jay Slater. So Josh, why don't you tell me, if the post-mortem has come back with what it's come back with and the Spanish police or the Tenerife police are happy with that post-mortem, why is it that we need an inquest into the death? And for those who don't know, what does an inquest entail of?
So basically, I had to do my research on this because I didn't know what the inquest was either. And to be honest with you, I think basically on what I've seen online, I don't think many people are kind of aware of the circumstances around what this inquest actually is. So just to clarify everything, it was for my benefit as much as for everyone else's, right? This is a coroner's court inquest, which basically is a formal judicial inquiry into the circumstances of someone's death. Now, the only reason why this ever happens, obviously this doesn't go on for just, a normal passing away when someone, pops their clogs, but this is actually for deaths that are sudden, violent, unnatural, or in a case where the cause of death is unknown. So what has obviously happened with Jay is that, he's passed away abroad, his body is brought back to the UK, and it's deemed that the circumstances were unknown and the cause of death needed a bit more inquiry. And so that's why this inquest has actually happened. And I think what's clear about this is, to say is, this isn't a criminal trial. This is an inquest to find out what actually happened. It isn't about determining liability, who might have, potentially murdered Jay. It's purely to understand the circumstances around his death and actually what the cause of death actually was.
But to understand those circumstances, I would be right to assume that you need everyone that was involved, and I'm not about involved in the death, I'm on about involved with Jay in the final hours and days before his disappearance. You need everyone that was involved present, cooperating and doing everything they can to help the inquest run as smoothly as possible. Would that be right?
Correct. So while this isn't a criminal proceeding, what it is the court actually has the power to order post-mortems, to enter premises and seize any evidence. They can ask for documents and they can ask for lots of different evidence produced around the case. But most importantly to this, and probably our first point of contention, they can compel witnesses to take the stand. Now, on witnesses, the first port of call is they always say to them it's voluntarily. If they don't attend and the court deems their witness statements to be important, they can actually compel them to be there.
Now, I think, would I be right to say that the main thing that we as the public and people such as ourselves that have took a keen interest in the case, the main thing that we want to know was this a night out gone wrong, an accident while intoxicated, and something that is a blameless incident, or is there a criminal aspect to this? And what we know so far from the inquest is that there are 5 main people linked to Jay Slater. There are obviously so many more, Ophelia, the woman that owns the Airbnb.
Yeah, so witness, people that came into contact of it.
Yes,
yeah.
But there are 5 main people. Those 5 main people being Lucy, Brad, Brandon, Ayub, and Rocky. Now, none of those 5 people turned up to the inquest. And you originally said, right, that the first sort of invitation to attend the inquest is voluntary, isn't it, right? And by that logic, I can understand it. I'm not saying it would be my decision. It wouldn't be my decision, but I can understand why Ayub and Rocky have not voluntarily turned up to the inquest, right? A lot of the time, you know, they might be far away, they might not be living in the country, things like that. And by all accounts, from what we've learned, and we will go into more detail, they weren't actually friends of Jay's, right? In my opinion, there were two people that he went back there and got on the sesh with. Now, Lucy, Brandon, and Brad were friends of Jay's, close friends of Jay's. Do you find it, one, disrespectful and potentially suspicious that they have not turned up to the inquest?
I find it strange because initially in this case there was a lot of media attention around it, wasn't there? And two of those three actually spoke to ITV, BBC News, I think, as well, and they actually presented their sort of like, I don't know, what they thought the events were, and they spoke very candidly and openly in a public forum, put their faces out there, and actually said, you know, that's who it was. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, mate, did Lucy actually speak anonymously on those cameras? She didn't show her face, did she, in those interviews initially?
She didn't show her face in the interviews.
But Brad did,
Yep.
didn't he? So in terms of anonymity and in terms of not wanting to be the focus of someone's attention, I can understand that as a reason for not wanting to show up to this inquest. It's quite a public thing. Your name is out there. You're bringing up information. You're cross-referenced. It's quite a scary thing, especially for a young person to be part of. But there's always the rationale in these sort of cases. If you've got nothing to hide, then you show up to them and you talk to them.
And ultimately, mate, the cat's out the bag now anyway. Because if you go on TikTok, if you go on Instagram, Brad, say for example, right, Brandon, he's the one that didn't show his face on camera. He's the one that didn't do anything. That picture of Brandon in an orange t-shirt sat on the side of the pool is everywhere. Speculation about Brandon is everywhere. In the day and age that we live in, do you know what gets more views out of TikTok or stories on the Daily Mail or sometimes the Telegraph and things like that? It's social media apps. It's social media apps. So the cat's already out the bag, in my opinion. And if you're happy enough to go on holiday with the lad, if you're happy enough to turn up at his funeral, which these three all did by all accounts, right? I don't get why you can't go to the inquest. Now, the official sort of wording from whoever is running the inquest is that Ayub and Rocky could not be traced, right? They could not be traced. You often get this. I get like Epsom Newell Police will post, we're looking for this man, blah, blah, blah. Look round the back of the garages on Longmead, you'll find him. He'll be there trying to score some. Yeah? Like, when they say these people can't be traced, it's more just they haven't picked up the phone to you. So do I believe that the police, investigators, if they wanted to, cannot trace Ayub or Rocky? No, I don't believe that. I could probably trace Rocky. I could text him right now. He's in our chats on TikTok, yeah? Right? So can they not be traced? No. In my opinion, they're probably not answering the phone and they're probably thinking, listen, we've had enough fucking flack for having this lad back to our house. We believe that we did him a favour in some way by giving him a place to crash, whatever. And we'll get into that. By the way, this is my interpretation of what I believe that they might be thinking. That's not me saying that this is the case, right? It's my interpretation. So I can understand why they might think, because say, for example, if Ayub's not in the country, if Rocky's not in the country, if Rocky's far away, I can understand why they're thinking, well, you're not going to pay for my flights back, right? I'm not going to cut short my time wherever I am in the world or whatever to come to this inquest of something that I don't believe I had fuck all to do with.
Yeah.
But the friends definitely should be there, shouldn't they? Now, Lucy, I've got it on authority, is in Tenerife at the minute.
That, by the way, that's mad.
Yeah.
Can I just say, like,
And
would that not be a very
when we
traumatic
say at the minute,
place?
we're recording this on Thursday, the 5th of June.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't really, trust me, Lucy's in Tenerife at the minute.
So the inquest was happening at the end of May, wasn't it? I mean, if she's still in Tenerife, is she still in Tenerife now? It wouldn't make that she's in Tenerife for a long time, if so.
Well, they can't sell themselves. No, I'm joking. No, no, I'm only joking. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Lucy's out in Tenerife at the minute. Brad, too, apparently is on holiday. Fuck knows where Brandon is.
Yeah.
Probably.
We haven't heard too much from him.
Probably tenors.
Probably tenors.
Probably.
just for clarity, tenors means Tenerife. That took me a while to sort of get that as well.
Yeah.
But Joey's obviously au fait with the Tenerife crowd. And
So much
it's
so
all
that
just
I've
tenors.
been to Tenerife.
yeah, exactly. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you guys about Space Goods. And we have been taking this little parcel of goodness for over a month or so now. And I know that a lot of you have as well. And you've been seeing huge benefits. So why don't we tell these guys how much this has helped us? Basically, this is the rainbow dust. This is the sort of thing that gives me sustained energy and allows me to create wonderful content like this about all of these true crime cases. Now you, Joey, you've got the astro dust. Why don't you tell me about how that's helped?
I'm on the astro dust. Little spoiler alert for you. I am also on the rainbow dust. But specifically the astro dust, I've actually been using this for my sleep. It helps me relax a lot. It helps me get to sleep a lot more effortlessly, and I'm sleeping through on it, which is something that very, very rarely happens to me.
Well, you might be asking, what is Space Goods? Well, it is an all-in-one mushroom and adaptogen powder, allowing you to get into your flow state and be your very best self. So what they might be asking is, what the hell is in these sort of things? So why don't we do the rainbow dust first? This thing, as I say, is the one to give you the energy throughout the day. And this has got things like ashwagandha, cordyceps, vitamin B5, and it comes in lots of different flavors. And I've got the chocolate here, but it comes in coffee flavor, it comes in vanilla flavor, and also strawberry as well. So that tastes really good. But the astro dust that Joey has, that has got lots of different ingredients like reishi, magnesium, chamomile, and that all together is the sort of thing that helps you sleep like a baby. So if you want to try this out for yourself, all you have to do is click the link in the description. That will give you 20% off. All you have to do is use our code. It's all caps, just Joey Josh. It's very, very simple. And if they want something even better than just that discount, what you can also do is get the Rainbow Dust Starter Kit, and that has a free mug, a whisk, a spoon, as well as the rainbow dust, all in one thing. And that is for the very, very low price of 24 quid. Remember, all you have to do is use code JoeyJosh. Hit that link in the description. Thank you so much for Space Goods for being part of the channel. Let's get back into the video. Right, so we can't track any of these people down. What I will say again, just to reiterate this, it's all voluntary right now. So if the court really do want these guys in court, they will have to produce a summons and they will have to force them to come there. Now, by the way, if they don't then attend court and the inquest, that is contempt of court. That is a criminal charge. And so if the court really do need them there and they don't show up, then something's massively wrong and they're in big trouble.
Well, they could each do a year or so in prison for contempt of court. That's
Yeah.
literally what Thingy just got.
Who's that?
Tommy Robinson, that was contempt
He
of court.
got contempt of court, yeah.
Was it contempt of court he got?
I think that makes sense. I don't know inside out that case.
Because he was filming outside of court, and I think that does fall under contempt of
it
court.
wasn't just about the filming outside of contempt of court. I think it was, they said that he couldn't release the video that he produced under court order.
Elon Musk let him release it.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's a story for another day, probably one that we won't cover. Despite saying they helped look for him, Abe and Rocky, who have obviously both spoke on the situation a lot less than most, they never really showed a whole lot of empathy for Jay Slater, did they? Would you agree with that?
I mean, did they really know him that well? That's the hard part of this. Like, would you be really empathetic to a stranger that you met on a night out that you didn't really know too much about and caused you loads of grief?
No.
Is that harsh to say?
It's people's interpretation, mate. You've got to remember, with a nationwide story, you are going to hit all different elements of society, all different sectors, communities of society. So the way that a highly educated doctor might think may be different, and I'm stereotyping here, and I understand I'm doing it, but might be different to the way that I might think, right? I've had situations where people that at points in my life have been very close to me, yeah, and I've spent a lot of time with, yeah, I've had situations where they have died, and because after spending a lot of time with them and stuff like that, I've then gone on to have grief off them. They've made my life a problem, things like that. When they've then died, I've had no empathy. And one thing that pisses me off in life, I'm going to seem like such a bad person, I'm coming across really badly here. One thing that pisses me off in life is everyone pretending they love someone once they were dead. You never fucking liked him when he was alive, and now he's dead, you love him. And I'm not saying that about Jay Slater, but what I'm saying is, with Ayub and Rocky, I can understand why they haven't spoke with much empathy for him, and why, for example, until they're summoned, they're not going to attend this inquest, right? But what I think is absolutely mental is that Lucy, right, was apparently the eyes and ears on the ground, out leading searches. That's been confirmed by multiple sources, including the friends, including Ayub himself. You know, apparently she was knocking on his door and they went looking for him. She was posting about Jay. She was posting about the GoFundMes. Where is she? Surely you would think that she would be at that inquest, surely.
It just feels like she would be the first one to want to go and speak and help out with all of the stuff that she's done. And also, let's be honest, mate, with the amount of pain and the amount of trauma that the family of Jay Slater have talked about, both in the court and outside of it, you'd feel so much empathy, bearing in mind you know him so well, wouldn't you? Like, the stuff that poor Jay's mum has said in court, it's gutting, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to read you out a statement here, because Debbie Duncan broke down in court stating, "We want these people to be sat in front of us because our son went on holiday and didn't come back. So there's questions that we need to ask." Now, for me, is it fair to say that through Debbie's words, both during the situation, by the way, and since, she still does not believe that this is an open and closed case? She does not believe that this is a straightforward narrative of son goes away on his first holiday to a music festival, then goes to an afters, has a bit too much to drink and maybe to take certain substances, wanders off, falls off the edge of a cliff to his death. Clearly, from what she said around the situation, right? Because when she was first being interviewed, she kept mentioning, if someone's got him, he might have got himself into trouble, but he's not a bad person, right? Mate, you don't have to be an expert to read between the lines. That is her inadvertently showing what her underlying feeling around his disappearance is. And her underlying feeling, Josh,
is that something nefarious happened around his death, and that someone might potentially have caused the death as opposed to an accident. So yeah, I think she is sort of clearly saying that.
And then to now say there's questions that we need to ask means that she hasn't had all her questions answered. But as far as the summary of what happened to Jay Slater, we're being told that all the questions have been answered, aren't we?
The inquiry is quite clear on that, yes. In terms of any foul play, and obviously we'll get into some evidence in a second, but in terms of foul play, the inquiry makes it very clear that there was no evidence and no physical evidence on Jay himself to say that he was restrained, harmed in that way.
Hold on. So I need to be physical to restrain you?
Not necessarily, and this is the thing. Like, we will go through the evidence in more detail, but if he was pushed into a ravine, against his will, he would have either have had to be physically restrained, i.e., handcuffs, some form of restraint to be able to stop him doing that, and therefore there would be ligature marks and that sort of thing. Now, also, there's another side to that, which is then people that are being restrained usually fight back and cause themselves injuries. And therefore, there are other injuries to trace around just, marks of being handcuffed or that sort of thing.
You say usually. I'd say it's about 50% of the time, mate. If I said to you right now, you didn't know me from a characteristic standpoint, and you didn't know what I was capable of, and you didn't know what I was willing to do. If I said to you right now, I've got a weapon in my pocket, get in that fucking car now. Yeah. There's a chance that I might have to physically restrain you or attempt to physically restrain you. I would say there's just as good a chance you just comply. Just comply. And also, there's a third way to this, where, and a lot of people have been talking about this recently, that Jay was incapacitated. There you go.
Like Jay was via whatever, extracurriculars that you want to talk about.
Have you ever watched the film The Business?
Yes.
The Business, right? you remember at the end when he's looking in the sewage tunnel for the money that's about to come down, and Danny Dyer's character just grabs a rock and does him over the head with a rock, right? So when you talk about the injuries being in line with a fall, right? What that would tell me, being in line with a fall, would mean that multiple parts of his body, limbs and whatnot, would have damage to them, because obviously when you fall, you're very unlikely to just pencil dive down, hit your head on the bottom and whatnot. You're likely to crash into sticks, bits of rock that stick out and stuff like that on the way down, and you're likely to have multiple injuries all over your body, and that's what consists of it being in line with a fall from height. But if you've got one major head injury in there, that could be where you hit your head on the ground when you went down. That could be a rock. Or it could be a case of someone hitting you with something and then you being dropped off of a ravine, right? A ravine which, by the way, we now know there wasn't a consistent police presence there over that 30 days. So you know when people go, oh, as if you'd have been able to get him there and as if you'd have been able to... There's a chance you could. Right? And there's a chance you could, whether that came from height or whether that came from water, in terms of driving around there on a boat. So I'm just saying, there's a chance you could. Now, that is unbeknown to us, and that's something we're purely speculating on, as every topic of, or every video on this topic would be, right? But one thing we do know is that Jay was found to have substances in his system. Now, you asked me to guess before what the substances would be, and I took a pick at 3, and you ruled me out, right? You ruled me out on it because you said no, because one of mine was wrong. Well, actually, the Inquest has told that there were 4 substances in his system.
Yeah, we've got to be very fucking careful of this, by the way, because this is what YouTube said that we couldn't talk about on the Jay Slater video. So we've got to be very careful. And what I will say right now is we do not say that drugs are good. In fact, we're saying very much that you shouldn't take any drugs, and that anything we discuss in this is very, very, very bad for you.
Okay.
Leave it at that, Jay.
Do I leave it there?
No. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So,
without going into specifics of the drugs.
Okay.
Because we can't.
So, Colombian marching powder.
Yep.
Disco biscuits.
Yep.
Yeah. Sent to make horses go to sleep. Yeah.
And a Stella Artois.
And, yeah, a Stella Artois. Okay. You have never drunk and you've never taken a substance in your life, have you?
Never in my entire life.
So, perhaps you might like to know from someone who has taken all of the above, on a scale of 1 to 10, how heavy a night out is that? What do you think it is?
I personally, with the amount of stuff in this system there, the cocktail, I would say that was a serious amount.
I'm calling that an 8 or 9 out of 10.
I would say that is as close to a 10 as you can get.
I would... mixtures of uppers and downers.
Yeah.
And we know that he was apparently drinking Hennessy in the car drive home, so it wasn't like he'd had a load of time off of it. I know Ayub's thing of his story of what happened, offered him a blanket, went to bed straight away, blah, 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 whatever. Doesn't sound like an after party to me. Normally there's something being chopped up and dished out. So I don't know. All I'm saying is when he's making that walk, I'm thinking he's still off his nut, if I'm being
And by the
honest.
way, what no one ever talks about in terms of this context, in terms of the extracurriculars that we're discussing here, is Jay is 19, right? This isn't like a fucking 35-year-old bloke that's been on the sesh his entire life. This is a young kid who's on a holiday and he's, in the sun, he's walking around, he's taken all of this stuff in a short period of time. And I don't care if you've been doing stuff since you were fucking 13 or 14. Your body isn't used to it. Look, I go back to uni all the time. The fucking sights that I saw of people that would take even one of those things and go a little bit too far is mad. Like people on death's door sometimes, like dealing with shit like this. Like even fucking having a whitey. Do you know what I mean? Like literally like bad moments. So, mate, like I know people never consider Jay and his age.
Can I, when we speak about age, can I throw something in here?
Go on.
And this is gonna make me seem so old. I'm literally like, I sound like my mum here when she's like telling me to pack for holiday. But sunstroke? You've been no, I'm not joking, mate. I'm not joking.
Sunstroke is shit. I've been vomiting for hours on sunstroke.
You've been at an all-day thing.
Yeah.
You've not gone to sleep.
Yeah. By
this point, you're walking around in the morning at what, about 8 a.m.-ish?
Yeah, I think that's the time where they said he left.
Yeah. So you're looking at low to mid-20s by that point.
Yeah, it's hot. Yeah.
Mate, not much water. Sunstroke to add in with a cocktail of substances, mate, like, you are not in a good way.
You're not in a good way.
You are not in a good way. But here's the main thing. When we made the first video on the Jay Slater case, the main thing that we spoke about was the Rolex being stolen, the AP being stolen. And I don't want to call it evidence, but do you know what I mean? Like, I had more than heavy suspicion. I had, like, indication to tell me that this was, like, fairly factual, and this wasn't an Instagram rumor. It's not the thing where people have dubbed subtitles over the people on the beach and stuff like that, and it could be one thing, but it could be another thing. And you know, it's not got much legs to it. Basically, in a nutshell, you can explain from, I spend a lot of time in Tenerife.
Yeah, Joey knows his stuff about Tenerife. I mean, Joey knows Papagayo better than the back of his hands.
Papagayo was the nightclub that Jay was in for the NRG festival. Every single place that Jay went to, I've been to. Probably loads of, well, not probably, I already know that loads of people that Jay met out there and whatever, I'd know things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just loads of things in the case.
Maybe you're going to get a call up to the Inquest at this rate.
I fucking should do. Wouldn't turn up either. Pay me. No. So I was told on good source at the time that them Snapchats about apparently stealing a watch and the rumour that Jay had apparently stolen a watch on the night was true, right? Now, in our first video, we couldn't confirm whether it was true, but the Inquestors heard that both a WhatsApp message and a Snapchat message were sent. Right? Now, one of the pieces of speculation being around the Rolex, and the Rolex was the first thing that was reported on. It was a WhatsApp message, and it was sent in to a WhatsApp group chat of friends and family. Friends and family.
Do we know who the actual friends and family were? Because we know it's his mum for sure.
But we know Debbie Duncan's in that.
Yeah.
In that chat, right?
Yeah. And it's from Jay's phone, to be clear.
It's from Jay's phone. Now, Jay was what, 19?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so when I was 19, I was going out and I was getting on it. Yeah? I lived with my parents at the time. I used to come in 6 in the morning. My parents are late risers anyway. And I would make sure that I did not leave my bedroom, whether that be 4 p.m, 5 p.m. the next day, might order a Domino's or something. I'd make sure I didn't leave my bedroom until I looked normal, because I don't want to be down at breakfast, whiteying and looking at my mum with fully dilated pupils.
Is it that bait? Is it?
It's that obvious,
yeah.
It's that obvious. I also, when I'm on the old disco biscuits, wouldn't be texting my mum telling her I love her and stuff like that, because I'd be I mean, she'd probably be having a drink thinking, oh, that's cute. but do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want your... I never knew... I never wanted my parents to know what's going on in my personal life. So since I started podcasting, they're going, I didn't know this happened to you. I didn't know this happened to you. And I'm like, well, stop fucking watching then.
Can
you know
I
ask
you a question, though? Have you ever
ever
sent a message to a WhatsApp group that you didn't intentionally mean to send it to?
No.
You've never sent a message to someone by accident that you meant to send to someone else?
Maybe if I was off my nut, something like that. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. But either way, there's a concern with it. Because I've got a theory that this watch that Jay had taken, whether it was an AP, whether it was a Rolex, I'll tell you what it was fucking fake. Yeah? It weren't a real watch. It was fake. If it was a real watch, what would have happened?
He would have got chased down the street, seriously grabbed.
Yeah,
beaten up.
But let's say it was a real watch of someone that was enjoying a nice holiday. What would that person go and do straight away?
Go straight to the police.
Go straight to the police.
Unless they're also involved in the crime world.
Potentially. But that has now been confirmed. Now, not only that, he then uploads a Snapchat. I don't know whether it was public or he sent it, but it was pretty much line for line the same thing. A few less spelling mistakes in the Snapchat. And all of a sudden, in the Snapchat, it has changed from an AP, which is a brand of watch, to a Rolly, which obviously means a Rolex. And the Inquest has heard that both images and both messages are factual.
So you said you've never sent a message to someone by accident.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I haven't.
But you're saying it's unlikely.
It's unlikely.
So therefore, the only other scenario that I've heard, might be a conspiracy theory, might not be, is that it could be someone using Jay's phone and sending a message to someone as a result.
Well, Debbie Duncan did an interview with, I believe it was The Sun, and she said that upon receiving the message, she didn't even know if it was Jay. It could have been someone using his phone. Now, again, when you're using language like that, it suggests that you believe that that could be the case. And a mother's instinct, right, in a case like this is actually worth more to me than what the police dealing with the investigation are thinking, because she knows the background of the person at play. And, you know, saying things like, oh, you know, he might have got himself in a bad situation, but he's not a bad person and whatever, that heavily suggests to me that you think your son has done something wrong on that night. I don't think that that is deniable. And I also think that that is highlighted by the fact that she wanted the mates in court because she wants to know exactly what had happened that night. But I do agree with you that there's a small possibility that that message could have been sent by someone else and it could have been laying the groundworks for a narrative around Jay's disappearance, because there are people online that are speculating that Jay was gone by this point. And someone else has sent that text off of his phone. But regardless, right, regardless of any of it, what we know is you have done a cocktail of substances. You're claiming to have stolen a watch, yeah? I believe him. Either his name's Jay Cartwright or it's Jay Slater. But I think it's Jay Slater. And I don't believe he's just a prolific bullshitter that's texting his mates going, yeah, I stole this watch off this bloke. I believe him. I believe that he has stolen a watch. Do you believe that?
There's evidence to show that he was bragging about it. I don't particularly find Jay's character to be the character of someone that's really legit and you can trust everything he says. I do think there is an element of a Cartwright in Jay, to be honest with you. And that might be insensitive to say in terms of like a way of phrasing it, but I feel like he wanted to show himself as a big man.
Can we just explain, for those who don't know who Jay Cartwright is? Jay Cartwright is obviously a legendary character from the In-Betweeners, a UK sitcom, is it?
Harmless, but a harmless guy, but wasn't very good at telling the truth.
But a total bullshitter. And what we're trying to insinuate is, was Jay a bullshitter? Or was he telling the truth and he had taken a watch? Now, if he has taken a watch, right, and we assume that to be truthful, he's a teenager. He might feel he knows a lot about life. I felt I knew fucking loads about life when I was that age. And really, I knew fuck all when I was that age. But if he has taken a watch, there's going to be an element of paranoia that then sets in, right? So regardless of what happened in the apartment, whether he became spooked, whether he was scared, whether he left the apartment for whatever reason, we know that he was texting Brandon, or from Abe's words, we know that he was texting Brandon saying, what are these guys like? Can I trust them? Are they cool? I think that Jay, with the cocktail of substances that he's had, has had a little bit of a freak out in this apartment. That then leads me to believe that he thinks that people are after him for this watch he's stolen. And that's exactly why he didn't wait at the cafe, he didn't wait at the bus stop, didn't want to stay at the Airbnb because he didn't know whether he could trust the guys, and that is why he went off-road. That's why he went off-road, in my opinion.
Makes sense.
So, therefore, I'm kind of leaning towards the theory that there might not have been foul play, and it might have been a tragic accident, but it may have been a tragic accident that came from some sort of criminal activity earlier on in the night.
I think the thing that I always keep going back to is I don't feel that the way that Jay's being portrayed always in the media is always correct. Like, basically what we see on social media is that Jay's this big criminal, you know, he's a guy that's, you know, strapped up, has got loads of different weapons on him, you know, taking all these substances, might be dealing them as well. Like, I feel that that's Jay's own concoction of his life. That's the way that Jay wanted to be portrayed, as a big man, as a potential criminal, as a geezer that was living on the edges of society. I do think, going back to what you were saying there in terms of what actually happened, the geezer had taken lots of stuff. he might have not been paranoid for whatever reason, whether it was for a watch or just because he was on what he was on. He goes for a walk in a way that he shouldn't have done because he didn't have any liquids in his system. He didn't have his phone charged. He wasn't able to have any help. And he also walked the wrong way. And like, I've seen lots of people saying he walked the wrong way because he was scared of people. I just think he didn't have any battery in his phone, or he had very little. He didn't want to check where he was going. He went the wrong way because he just didn't know what he was doing. The directions were so poor.
You truly believe that?
He walked in completely the opposite direction to where he was meant to be going, wasn't he? He walked up a hill towards a national park, away from the route. So let's play this out. So there's a way that he could have been doing that to hide from someone, to run away from someone because he was so scared, right? You could have hid or run away from someone without walking the distance that he walked away from the property.
You could have done.
You could have hidden on the way home.
You could have done. Right?
I think.
No. You could have done. You could have done. You could have done. If I'm in that situation where, listen, whether Jay had anyone after him or not is actually irrelevant.
Yeah, it's true.
What is true in my mind is that he believed he did in his head.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I believe that Jay Slater believed in his head, for right or for wrong, that people were coming to get him. And I believe that that is off the back of an altercation with a watch theft earlier on in the night. That's just my belief, right? Yep. So if I'm Jay Slater, I don't want to wait at this bus stop. I don't want to walk the route that, if anyone was coming for me, they would know I was walking. So the other option is, okay, you go off-road, right? But if they drive that route once, bearing in mind he's already driven it the night before, apparently. If they drive that route once and they don't see him on the road, what's the first thing they're going to think? They're going to think, oh, he's probably gone off-road. If he goes off-road, he's probably not going to go too far. So in his head, I think he feels he's pulled a masterstroke in thinking, I'll go the complete opposite way because they're never going to look for me there.
There's so many leaps in some of these conspiracy theories. There's so many things. So just for example, right, he stole this watch off a geezer that was trying to sell knockoff stuff outside a nightclub, right? That's probably the most realistic situation. How the fuck is that guy going to know where Jay Slater is? How is he going to know?
This is the problem, Josh. This is the problem. And I know you've been to uni, and I know you've experienced it, and I know you've taken it in from other people, and you've seen how people's body language, how their behaviour changes when they're under the influence, but you've never experienced it yourself. So I don't think that you can actually know the answer to the question that you're asking when you've never experienced being under that amount of influence of substances.
So, but that comes back to my original point then, is whether perceived threat or whether there actually was threat is what you're saying is irrelevant. He still made the journey up of the understanding that he was paranoid and still scared of people, even though there wouldn't have been anything actually there.
Mate,
to be worried about.
I've been in kitchens, till 8, 9 in the morning. An Amazon delivery driver has come and knocked on the door to deliver a parcel, and we all think it's old Bill and we're about to get raided and everyone's going to prison. Yeah. So that's the mindset you end up getting yourself in these situations.
Fair enough.
And really, I think that also we've got to look at the contradictions as well. And this is one of the reasons why I believe that the friends maybe haven't turned up to court, because I believe that there may be a fear of providing contradicting statements. Because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in an inquest, in a courtroom with people that are specifically trained to get that out of you, right? And we know that already they've made conflicting statements. Now, Lucy, we said that when she did her TV interview, she refused to have her face on camera. But here is what she said.
How are you feeling about the way things are? You know, it's 72 hours since you spoke to Jay.
Well, it's actually even been longer than 72 hours now. It was 72 hours at 8:30 this morning. And obviously, that's a long time to be going without food, without water. And I just think with the amount of time that's gone by, I feel like a little bit more could have been done on the authorities' part over here.
Fair play. But then Ayub has obviously been doing the rounds. He's spoken a lot on social media, a couple of different podcasts that he's been on, and a lot of live streams off of his own social media platforms. And this is something that he has recently said.
All right, sweet, bro. If you want to go, innit? The bus stop is there. And then next thing you know, I'm getting a call at like 9 o'clock saying the mate has gone missing. He rang them, said he left mine. Then I'm off. He rang them 50 minutes later saying, yo, I'm in a fucking ditch. I need water. I think I'm going to die. That's what he told the girl. I think I'm going to die.
Right. Okay, so there's something that we should point out straight away. Just because Ayub has said it, it doesn't mean it is true. But fuck me, Josh. If that is not conflicting, what else is? Because if Jay had said that to Lucy on the phone, that he was in a ditch, no water, thought he was going to die, why on earth would Lucy not say that in the interview when she had her back turned to the camera?
I just think that the witness statements from this case and the circumstances of when they've reported this information is so inadmissible in court. I just don't believe anything that these people say. And also, I just think, how much would you know what you're up to when you're on a big night like this? Like, how much would you actually remember? Oh, at 6:45, I woke up and went outside for 10 minutes. Then I came back and then I had a cigarette. Then I did this. Then I did that. Mate, fuck me. Like, if I tried to do that for yesterday, I'd be fucked. I'd have no idea what I was doing at a particular time.
No, I'm not having it.
Go on then.
I'm just not having that.
Go on. What's the refuse?
Mate, they're not asking her what she ordered for her starter 3 nights ago when she went out for dinner. They're asking her last interaction with Jay. If your last interaction, was, oh, I've got 1% battery and there's a cactus and I'm in the middle of nowhere, blah, blah. Or, it's, I'm without water, I'm in a ditch, I think I'm going to die. Yeah? You remember that. What about Brad? When he did his interview? When Brad did his interview, he said, Jay was showing me, he was on FaceTime, he was saying, like, it's mad, like, look at where I am. You got to remember, I just come out of a festival myself. Had ya? Because apparently that call was at 8 a.m. in the morning. But why did Jay go back to Ayub and Rockies? Tell me, why did he go back there?
Go on, tell me.
Because his friends left him when he was in the festival. His friends wanted to go, he wanted to stay. So when Jay rings Brad at 8, or around 8 o'clock, Brad says, obviously, I've just come out of a festival myself. Well, didn't you leave the festival 8 hours before, around midnight? That was what the report was. So just in the bits that they've said to media and the bits that they've said, there's so many conflicting statements. And that's why people will be so suspicious as to why none of them have turned up to the inquest, because a lot of people, and I'll throw it out there now, including myself, are under the belief that if they all get separately interrogated, their stories ain't matching up. And there's going to be holes to pick like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. I don't necessarily feel that those holes mean that we're going to find out exactly what happened to Jay or that there's anything nefarious going on. I think basically we're talking about witnesses that aren't reliable and stories which are changing, but I don't think that necessarily means that there's something more nefarious going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel that there's people... I feel there's a few Cartwrights in this. I feel there's a few people wanting to exaggerate how cool they are or how involved they were or what they actually said. And I don't really pay a lot of heed to any of them, to be fair.
Well, listen, in my opinion, all I'm saying is, mate, there was over 75 grand or something raised for that GoFundMe?
Yep.
Yeah, obviously, Lucy was a sort of pusher of that GoFundMe at the start. Brandon, there with Jay. I completely sympathise that they did not pick for this to happen. And the theory that I go on with, and I believe, is that Jay got himself in trouble that night. Jay was the one that wanted to stay. Jay was the one that wanted to carry on getting on it. And we haven't heard any reports that Brad or Brandon or anyone else did anything illegal. And Jay might not have also, but he may also have done, right? And the inquest's hearing that he was sending these things about the watch, right? So Jay got himself in trouble. It's not these lot's fault as far as we know. So I can completely understand that a large part of their sort of early adulthood, late teenage years has been stained by this situation. Not only that, they've lost a friend, but when you've raised 70 odd grand on a GoFundMe and stuff like that, out of respect and out of respect to the family, you should be turning up to that inquest. And if your hands are clean, I honestly do think you turn up. The only thing I would say to counter it ever so slightly is when you're involved in a dangerous world, you don't want to speak for the unknowing of what could incriminate you and what couldn't, and what could get you into trouble and what couldn't get you into trouble. My best friend got stabbed in the face, you know what I mean? We found out well quick who done it. But would I ever tell anyone that? No. Would I have ever spoke to the police about it? No. if they, my friend that got stabbed, if they had ever offered him to pick people out of a lineup, would he have done it? No, because ultimately, the police are there to investigate. The police are there to clear things up, find out not even find out what happened, to just
find out the cause of death, really. That's what they're there for in this investigation.
Yeah. But ultimately, if it comes to gang life, that sort of thing, cartels, things like that, the police have got no authority. They can do fuck all. They can't keep you safe. So that part of me does understand why people don't want to talk, because they don't want to fucking incriminate themselves. They don't want to put themselves at potential harm. And ultimately in life, loose lips sink ships. And I can kind of, part of me, see why these people, these kids, these friends of Jay's, just want to be done with it, because they don't want to have to look over their shoulder thinking, I've spoke about this person and this person could now have me done.
And it's not just about gangsters or criminals, it's also just about trolls. Like, look at what poor old Debbie's had to be dealing with in terms of like all of the messages, all of the DMs, like all of the shit that she's had to deal with. And then imagine the same thing for all of these young people who are perpetually online, who are living through their phones, on social media, in Snapchat, that sort of thing, and all of the grief and the hassle that they would get as well. So yeah, look, I think there are definitely reasons why you wouldn't voluntarily want to turn up to something like this and bring it back up and expose yourself, put your name in the press again. They might be advised not to. Their legal advice might be to not do that. So I think there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't. And again, if the court has something that they really want to be able to get these guys, to the stand, they'll summons them.
Yeah. People, let us know your thoughts. Obviously, the inquest will rumble on, so if there's enough intrigue and if people are interested in hearing our thoughts as we cover it in further detail, definitely let us know of that in the comment section below.
And also, what we will say as well is we're talking about Jay Slater's death, so we very much want to say to him and to his family, we hope he rests in peace. We hope his family are, getting through what is a really, really tough time, especially to bring it up. And, throughout all this case, the one thing that we've got to remember is that a young geezer has passed away. And so we put the sympathies out to the family and the friends.
And more so than, hoping that they receive our condolences and sympathy, I think we both agree that we hope that they receive the answers, because they clearly still haven't got them. People, we'll see you in the next one.